Hello guys, you're welcome back to Slick Academics, and today we are starting off with Kingdom Monera. The last time we discussed about classification of living things, and we discussed about the five kingdom classifications. Under the five kingdom classifications, we have the Monerans, we also have the Protista, we have the fungi, we have the plantae, and we have the mammalia. So today we are kicking off with Kingdom Monera, and we're going to see their general characteristics. The first one is that they are unicellular organisms, though some are filamentous. Filamentous means some grow as thread-like structures, mostly joined end to end by cells. And they are also microscopic, meaning they can be seen with the naked eye. They reproduce by binary fission. Of course, in our last one of our discussions, when we saw the characteristics of living things, we saw one of them was reproduction, and I showed you an organism that was dividing by binary fission, that is dividing into two. So bacteria also reproduces by binary fission, which is a form of asexual reproduction. Also, they can also reproduce by cell division. And not to forget mentioning that the monerans are made up of mostly the bacteria and the blue-green algae. Now, some are autotrophs. The blue-green algae in this case are autotrophs. They can photosynthesize and produce their own food, while the bacteria are heterotrophs. That means they depend on other means of organisms, because other organisms for their means of food, because they can manufacture their own food. And they are prokaryotes. That means their nucleus are not within a nuclear membrane. Now, if you look at this, their DNA or their chromosomal DNA is scattered all over the cytoplasm. They are not within a membrane-bound nucleus. All right. So in this case, we call such organisms prokaryotes. And some members are involved in carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle, and in all the processes of decay. These members obviously are bacteria. Okay, so they are mostly involved in our nutrient cycle, which helps to ensure that these nutrients in the environment are cycled back and forth. Now, this is a typical example or a typical diagram of a bacterial cell. Okay, then we go to the next one, Kingdom Protista, and here we have four phyla. We have the euglenophyta, which is mostly made up of the euglena. Then we have the protozoa. Some organisms here, we have the amoeba and the paramecium. Okay, here we also have the malaria pathogen, which is plasmodium, and we also have the trypanosome. They all fall under protozoa. And then we have the chrysophyta, which is mostly the golden algae. And then we have the pyrophyta, which is mostly the dinoflagellates. But for the sake of the scheme, we shall be focusing on euglena, that's the euglenophyta, and the protozoa. Now let's look at the general characteristics of the protistas. Then we have all protista are microscopic, meaning they can be seen with the naked eye, and they are unicellular organisms, meaning they are only made up of one cell. Okay, so whenever you hear unicellular, just remember one cell. Uni means one, and they are eukaryotic in nature. Now, unlike the monerans that are prokaryotes, now the genetic material of the protista are found within a membrane-bound nucleus. So their DNA materials are not scattered all over the cytoplasm. So we call them eukaryotic. All right. Now we have the third one. Some of the protista are heterotrophic, some are autotrophic, while some are both autotrophic and heterotrophic. In this case, euglena is the culprit. Okay, euglena is also autotrophic and heterotrophic, so it can photosynthesize and it can also source its food from external means. Then we have, they move either by cilia, in this case we have paramecium, or flagella, in this case we have euglena, or amoeboid in nature, in this case the amoeba. All right, we're going to see later on that the amoeba has no legs, rather it can form infoldings or outfoldings that form a false leg, so we call it pseudopoda. All right, so we have the protista make up much of the planktons found in the ocean. Now here we are going at the dinoflagellates, all right, which is the basis of food supply for all the organisms in the sea. Now, some protistas cause serious diseases in humans, like Plasmodium falciparum, which causes malaria, a very serious tropical disease here. And then we have Entamoeba histolytica, which is responsible for dysentery. And then we have Trypanosome, which causes sleeping sickness. And sleeping sickness can also be called trypanosomiasis. Okay, so here is a diagram of a paramecium. Okay, now in the contractile vacuole we have anterior contractile vacuole and posterior contractile vacuole. This helps in what we call osmoregulation. Basically helps in removing excess water from the body of the organism. Then we have the food vacuole, which helps to trap the food for digestion. Then the gullets, and entry point for food into the cell. You can see a diagrammatic representation of that. Now this cilia, these hair-like structures around the paramecium, is mostly for locomotion, that is movement. So the rhythmic beating of the cilia enables it to do what? Move. Then we also have the cytoproct. Is actually a point where solid weight can actually be removed from the body of the paramecium. And we have the pellicle, an outer covering for the organism, and micronucleus for genetic materials, and macronucleus for controlling every single activity within the body of the paramecium. And then we have here the popular amoeba. It is shapeless, so it can fold into any form in order to move. And then these outward movements are known as, these outward foldings are known as pseudopoda or pseudopods. All right, pseudo simply means false, so we call it false legs. It's just something that it produces out of emergency in order to enable it to do what? Move. So we also have the food vacuole here for digestion of the food, the cytoplasm where every chemical activity happens, then the cell membrane, the outer covering, and also a contractile vacuole for controlling the amounts of water in the body. So we call it actually helps in osmoregulation. Osmo here has to refer to water, and then regulation is obviously control, so it doesn't want excess water in the body. So contractile vacuole aids in osmoregulation. Now we go over to the euglena, a very special organism, can actually source its food externally or can produce its food because it contains this organelle, the chloroplast. Okay, the pellicle is the covering of the organism, the outer covering of the cell. And then we have contractile vacuole, obviously for osmoregulation, like we earlier mentioned. Then the reservoir here, remember, after the contractile vacuole has expelled water, this water can be expelled into the reservoir for total removal from the body of the organism. Then the stigma, or what some textbooks might refer to as the eye spots, is for sensing light. All right, so it is light sensitive to enable it to detect light. And then we also have the flagellum. This whip-like structure that formed something that looks like a tail here enables it to move. All right, so for locomotion. Then the nucleolus obviously is, and nucleus in particular, is mostly for reproduction and also for controlling the activities of the organism. Then we have kingdom fungi. Now their characteristics include they are eukaryotic. Obviously they are eukaryotic organisms, like we earlier mentioned, are organisms that have their DNA materials found within a membrane-bound nucleus, so it is not scattered all over the cytoplasm. Remember, we saw the prokaryotes, which had their material scattered everywhere within the cytoplasm. Example is the bacteria, which is the kingdom Monera. Then we went on the protista, they are eukaryotes, and then we have come down to the fungi, they are also eukaryotes. Now, some members are unicellular. In this case, we are referring to yeast, while others are multicellular. In this case, we are referring to mushrooms. Okay, and they are heterotrophic, so they are either absorbing materials directly from their food or secreting enzymes to digest their food. In most cases, fungi can also be saprophytic. and that means they are sourcing their food from external means, obviously, so they don't produce their own food, so they are also heterotrophic. Their cell walls are made up of chitin instead of cellulose. This enables them to have definite shape, and they are mainly saprophytes, like I earlier mentioned. That means they are feeding on dead materials. Um, why some are parasites, okay, why others are parasites, that means they can cause you illness, and then they play a vital role within the ecosystem. They're also involved in nutrient cycle because they are decomposers. Example, we have the rhizopus, the mucor, the yeast, and the penicillium. So this is a typical example of a mushroom. All right. Thank you very much if you have joined me to this very moment. And in our next class, we shall be moving on to the study of kingdom Plantae. Please make sure to like, comment, and also share our videos with friends. Thank you, and see you in our next class.